G'day guys, let's get stuck into this. We are counting down. We're up to selection number 3. I'm not going to recap. I'll do that at the end. So we're looking for the best ever pick number 3 in the history of the VFL/AFL draft, 1986 through to 2021. We go right back to 1988. In fact, this is the first time that we haven't gone right back to the first draft of 1986. But 1988, the Fitzroy Football Club picked up South Australian Carl Delina. Ended up playing for both Fitzroy and North Melbourne, 33 games. And after his football career finished, I think he may have been involved in cricket. Might have been a really good cricketer, Carl Delina. Did I read that somewhere? Or I'm mistaken, but he was definitely the CEO at North Melbourne for a period of time, not that long ago. 1989, Jody Arnold from Tasmania went to St Kilda. Remember the name, can't remember the player. Played 13 games for the Saints. 1990, David Donato from Tasmania as well, just 1 year at Fitzroy where he played 12 games in that year. 1992, serviceable player for Essendon, Michael Pryor from East Perth. Played 81 games for the Bombers and then went back home and played 9 for the West Coast Eagles, so 90 overall. He made the unusual choice when he was first drafted in 1992 to actually remain at his Waffle club, East Perth, for the 1993 season. He thought that he would probably play regular senior football there and would be better for his development. And what did Essendon do in 1993? They win the 1993 premiership and they were touted as the Baby Bombers, so he missed out. 1995, Brendan Fuster, another player from Western Australia, remained in Western Australia for his whole career, played at the West Coast Eagles, then Fremantle, played a fair bit forward. Big lump of a lad, Brendan Fuster. Big lump. 70 games and 43 goals. 1996, another player a tad unlucky to be in the not-so-notables, Rory Hilton. Originally drafted by Brisbane, where he played 9 games, but was probably better known in his time at the Tigers, where he played a further 82 games with Richmond, 91 games, 56 goals. And the final not so notable, this is a very short list. I'm going to pop Paddy Dow in there, 2017. And I know you could probably chuck him into the newbies, but I just think selection number 3 has been extremely disappointing. And most of those 59 games that Paddy Dow played came in his first 2 seasons, where Carlton were really gifting games to their youngsters under the tutelage of Brendan Bolton. And he really hasn't come on since. And I know he's contracted for another year at Carlton, but over the last 2 years, he's hardly played any football at all. And he hasn't been injured. He's just been overlooked. So he's been somewhat disappointing. And I don't know. He sought to find another home. But I don't think there were many takers, to be perfectly honest. Okay, let's go into the notable mentions. So right back to 1986, Stephen Phoebe, a fine player for Melbourne. 258 games. Was he a twin? Pretty sure he's a twin. Was it Matthew and Stephen Phoebe were identical twins? Yeah. So he played between 1987 and 2001. He was the only Demon player to play in both Melbourne's 1988, when they were thumped, and 2000, when they were thumped, losing grand final teams. 1988 was it Hawthorn smashed them, and who could forget 2000 when the Bombers stitched them up. 1987, Graham Wright, another player from Tasmania, this time East Devonport, was drafted to Collingwood with pick number 3. Ended up playing 201 games of senior football. He was an extremely quick wingman early in his career. Played in the Collingwood's drought-breaking 1990 premiership. And in that year came second in the Brownlow medal, which was somewhat of a surprise, but he was eye-catching. He could kick goals. He was fast. Then had a knee reco in 1986 and came back as a defender. We now know that Graham Wright is the list manager. Is he back at Collingwood? I'm pretty sure he's back at Collingwood. 1991, Darren Cowell, Western Australian, found his way to Melbourne, 105 games as a defender, played all 22 games in 1996, and is remembered for a physical confrontation he had with a Richmond runner. And coach Robert Walls during a match in that same year, and both Cowell and Walls were fined for the incident. It got quite heated. 1993, the much-travelled journeyman Justin Murphy. So he started at the Tigers where he played 12 games. He came to Carlton. He ended up having 2 stints at Carlton, played 115 games with the Blues, 18 with the Geelong in between 2 stints at Carlton, then finished up at the Bombers where he played a further 40. That's 185 games and 151 goals. He was a pretty talented footballer and in a bit of strife post his football career finished. And he's famous, really, when you think about the image of him holding the ball up in the 1999 prelim final when the final siren sounded. It was him, Justin Murphy, who held that ball up. Another player that found a little bit of trouble post his football career was Shannon Grant. But could he play? 1994, went to the Swans, played 58 games there, but always wanted to come home. And found his way back to North Melbourne. He actually went to school in North Melbourne, ended up playing 243 really good games for North Melbourne. So 301 games overall for Shannon Grant and 361 goals. Best and fairest with the Kangaroos in 2001, Premiership player 99, Norm Smith in 99, and All-Australian in 2005. 1997, Trent Crode, another player who started at a club, went to another club, and then came back to his original club. Born in New Zealand, Dandenong Stingrays, Hawthorn, Fremantle, back to Hawthorn. Could play both ends. Probably played more forward in his time at the Dockers. So 222 games and 189 goals. Finished his career as a key defender at the Hawks, when he played in that 2008 Premiership team. When the Dockers traded for him, the picks the Hawks got, or they received, they used to get Luke Hodge and Sam Mitchell. He was an All-Australian in 2005, but think about that for a second. Okay, the picks they used when Trent Crode went to Fremantle, they used to get Luke Hodge and Sam Mitchell, and then Trent Crode ended up coming back to Hawthorn anyway. 1998, Nick Fosdyke, Norwood, went to Sydney, serviceable, could play, quite talented, 164 games, Premiership in 2005, and very unlucky in that grand final. He was really good not to get the Norm Smith medal. 1999, a little bit maligned, Aaron Fiora. Yeah, Tigers, 78 games, St Kilda's 62, originally from Port Adelaide. He was classy, but he just did not live up to the hype. Overall, 140 games and 58 goals. 2000, Alan Didak, another South Australian from Port Adelaide, spent his whole career at Collingwood. Started off really slowly, but once he built into his career, he was dynamite. 218 games, 274 goals, a couple of All-Australians, best and fairest in 2006. Premiership player in 2010, was a great player in the replay. He was a very exciting footballer, Alan Didak. 2002, the Enigma, I reckon, Jared Brennan, Brisbane, could do anything on his day, could kick bags of goals, could go back, could have the ball on a string, but then the following week he'd just go missing. Went to the Suns as one of their highly paid recruits when they first came into the competition. Ended up playing 173 games and kicked 101 goals. 2003, the tragic Colin Sylvia. Had quite a few off-field issues in his time in the AFL, at Melbourne, then Fremantle. 163 games, most of those with the Ds, 130 goals. He could play. He could really play. Went to the Dockers as an unrestricted free agent, but only played 6 games in 2 seasons. And then at the age of 32, when his AFL career was all over, he tragically died in a car crash in his hometown up in Mildura. 2004, Ryan Griffin. Yeah, look, Western Bulldogs had played some really good football there. Really good football. All Australian 2013, won a couple of best and fairest, captain for the Dogs for a year. Then it all unravelled really quickly. There was some rumours and that some of the senior players weren't happy with Brendan McCartney. He went to the Giants, played some good football there, but he was never quite the same. Had some big injuries, particularly late. Played 55 games for GWS. Kicked 162 goals and is a 200-game player. The Dogs got Tom Boyd out of it, who ended up being a star in their premiership in 2016. 2005, Xavier Ellis, Gippsland boy, Scott Pendlebury went in the same draft after Xavier Ellis, who's also from Gippsland, so they would have played together at the Gippsland Power. Obviously, Xavier Ellis's career is finished and Pendlebury's still going. Went to Hawthorn, really light of frame, left footer, quite talented, skillful, 86 games, premiership player in 2008. Played again in Hawthorn's losing grand final in 2012 against the Swans. And then went to the Eagles. Wasn't from Western Australia, so it was a bit of a strange move at the time that he went to the Eagles. Played a further 34 games with the West Coast, including, ironically, playing in the Eagles' losing grand final team. In fact, they were absolutely smacked against his whole old team, Hawthorn. 2006, Lachlan Hansen, same draft as Joel Selwood. Big key position player. He could swing either end. Probably more noted as a defender. He was one of the sort of first sort of intercept grabs. He was a great contested mark. Had lots of injuries. 11 seasons at the Kangaroos. Played only 151 games. On his day, he could rip a game apart with his marking, but we just didn't see it often enough. 2007, Chris Maston, West Coast Eagles, played in that famous 2018 premiership against the Pies. Ended up playing 215 games in 12 seasons, so it's a pretty good effort. But he was a big part with Josh Kennedy in the Chris Judd deal. Carlton had to cough up, obviously, Josh Kennedy and also pick number 3. And the Hawks swooped on Chris Maston, ends up playing in the premiership. Josh Kennedy did as well. 2008, Stephen Hill, the older brother of Brad Hill. Soft tissue injuries, but on his day was just silk. Could go forward, could kick goals, set up play, beautiful left foot kick. 218 games overall, 112 goals. The final where they beat the Cats at Cardinia Park, had to travel there from the west. He was the one who kicked the sealer. I'll never forget that. It was a great win. And interesting, the Hill brothers became the first siblings since 1912 to play against each other in an AFL grand final, or siblings to play against each other in an AFL grand final when the Hawks took on the Dockers in 2013. 2009, Dustin Martin. Richmond via Castlemaine, still going. Is his best now behind him? We're just going to have to wait and see. What a player. What an absolute jet. 269 games, 303 goals. 3-time premiership player, 3 Norm Smith medals. Lee Matthews Trophy 2017. AFL Coaches Association Player of the Year Award 2017. 4 times All-Australian, 3 times Gary Ayres medal, 2 times Best and Fairest winner. You're probably thinking right here, right now, he's very, very unlucky not to be the best ever. But someone has to win it, and it's not going to be Dustin. 2010, Sam Day, Gold Coast Suns. he missed the whole year, 2017, with a hip injury. Big boy, 143 goals. 143 games and 100 goals. Still going, still on the Suns list. 2011, Dom Tyson, originally GWS, then came to Melbourne where he played 94 games. North Melbourne he finished up with, ended up playing overall 113 games, kicked 45 goals. Lockie Plowman, 2012. GWS where he played 20 games, ended up at Carlton where he's become a whipping boy. Poor old Lockie. He's played 117 games for the Blues, so he is a life member. It feels like he is hanging on by the skin of his teeth with 1 year remaining on a contract at Princes Park. 2013, another maligned pick number 3, Jack Billings, St Kilda. The Saints are probably a little bit dirty because the Dogs took Bont at pick number 4, Bontempelli. Billings, goal-kicking mid on his day, can kick multiple goals and win a fair bit of the ball, but very inconsistent and had his injuries. Listen to this, though. This just shows you how good these players are when they just drop to the lower level. After a slump in form in the first half of the 2018 season, Billings was dropped from St Kilda's senior team to their VFL affiliate, Sandringham. In his first and only VFL game for 2018, Billings collected 53 disposals and was immediately recalled to the senior team. 53 touches in the second tier competition in the country. 2014, Angus Brayshaw. Looked like his career was going to be cut short with concussion issues. The D's got him with selection number 3. He's a fine player. 143 games and still going. Premiership player in 2021. 2015, Callum Mills to Sydney, academy selection. They knew when they got Callum Mills, they got a good player because they actually gave him the number 14 jumper, which was worn by arguably the two best Sydney Swans and South Melbourne players, Bobby Skilton and Paul Kelly. Mills started as a halfback flanker, has gone into the midfield, Rising Star winner in 2016, Swans best and fairest in 2022 and got his first All-Australian blazer this season as well. And I'm going to chuck Hugh McCluggage, 2016, into the notable mentions. He's played 130 games and building beautifully. North Ballarat Rebels, and he's played those games in a time where the Lions needed some stability in regards to keeping their young players at the football club and not returning home to Victoria. They lost a heap of players, and they've done that particularly well. Let's quickly go through the newbies. 2018, Isaac Rankin, Gold Coast Suns, now finds himself at Adelaide, 48 games, 57 goals. Really looking forward to seeing him develop over the next couple of years at the Adelaide Crows. Can he really settle? 2019, another player who's gone home to his original state, Luke Jackson. Melbourne, now at Fremantle, premiership player, obviously, with the D's in 2021. He's played 52 games. 2020, Will Phillips struck down with a couple of bouts of glandular fever. 16 games, but it's got some real talent. In 2021, another player's had some injuries. He's actually recently had some foot surgery. Don't like to hear that. Is Finn Callaghan from the Sandy Dragons. Went to the GWS 2021, obviously drafted 5 games in his debut year. All right. If you know the draft, if you know selection number 3, the best ever, and it was a toss of the coin in the end, really, between Dustin Martin. And you can mount an argument for Dustin. And this is nothing to do with bias either, the fact that this bloke played at Carlton. But the best ever is Chris Judd with selection number 3. I just think the fact that he's done it at 2 clubs, and this is no knock on Dusty. loyalty at the one club. But what Chris Judd has been able to do at two different clubs and then struck down with an injury and then changed the way he plays, and the longevity, I suppose, and then his career was cut short with an ACL in the end. He probably had another year left in him, and he possibly could have got to 300. I just feel at his absolute best, he was better than Dustin Martin, and he changed the way he played as well, and very, very good leadership qualities as well. So let's have a look at his resume. 2001, he was drafted to the West Coast Eagles, so he was there from 2002 to 2007. At the Eagles, he played 134 games and kicked 138 goals. He was the premiership captain in 2006 and was also the Norm Smith medalist in the Eagles' losing grand final the year before against the Sydney Swans. He won the Brownlow medal for the Eagles in 2004. He was a 2 times West Coast Eagles best and fairest. He was also a 2 times All-Australian at the West Coast Eagles Football Club and 3 times Ross Glendinning medalist. Captain of the football club for a couple of years, won a Lee Matthews trophy at the West Coast. Then he went to the Blues, the much publicised trade. Carlton from 2008 through to 2015. He played more games at Carlton, 145, and kicked 90 goals. Brownlow medalist once again, so that's 2 Brownlows, won it again in 2010, won 3 best and fairest for the Blue Baggers, and while he was at Carlton, he also collected 4 All-Australians, so that's 7 all up, and also won a Lee Matthews trophy and was captain at that football club in such a bad time, or when they were trying to build between 2008 and 2012 and played some unbelievable finals football. And I know it wasn't grand finals, but some unbelievable finals games. He was a big game player. Overall, 279 games and 228 goals. So the best ever. Pick number 3, unlucky Dustin Martin, but it goes to Chris Judd. So let's have a look quickly. Dangerfield 10, Pike 9, Bartel 8, Selwood 7, McRae 6, Franklin 5, Pavlich 4, and Judd 3. Reworked. Pike 10, McRae 9, Bartel 8, 7, Pavlich, 6, Dangerfield, 5, Franklin, and Juddy's at 4, and I've got Selwood at 3. I still think Selwood overall, maybe not the best player, the most talented player, but just his record and everything he was able to achieve, he is still the best at the moment. Let's have a look at pick number 2 shortly. Speak soon.